It seemed like she was finally free, like 17-year-old Samantha Heller had finally broken away from her abuser, Benjamin Klinger. She had even moved back in with her mom and was moving forward on assault charges against the boy, as well as charges for sending explicit pictures of the underage girl to his friends.
She was doing so well. I didn't hear his name for a while, you know, and like, you could just tell like she was in different spirits.
But then, after 6 months apart, it seems Ben found a way back in.
She calls me up to her room and proceeds to tell me that they had been pressuring her, you know, making her feel bad because of the upcoming charges.
Apparently, Ben reached out to get Samantha to drop the charges, especially the one that would make him a registered sex offender.
So he gets her to sign something that says, I don't want to press charges.
Then, just a few days before the end, Samantha changed her mind again.
She actually comes into our office here and she starts explaining, look, you intimidated me, I didn't really know what I was signing. You know, I do want something done. I don't want him to go to jail, but I want some accountability.
Restitution, as she put it in this note to Ben, a handwritten list of things she wanted to discuss, one big thing in particular.
December 3rd, she had gone to Planned Parenthood. She believed she was pregnant.
With Ben's baby.
And one of the things on the note is she wanted child support.
She told me she was back with him, and I was just so angry because she was doing so well, and I was like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. Sorry.
It was the last time Paige Myers and her friend would ever speak. The day after Samantha's visit to Planned Parenthood, December 4th, she tells her mom she's spending the weekend with a friend. Instead, she was inside Ben's car, speeding down the highway at nearly 120 miles per hour.
Lancaster County 911, do you need police, fire, ambulance?
I need both. There's a car on fire, Interstate 283.
It's approximately 2 a.m. when a truck driver calls 911 to report seeing Ben's car careen off the highway and into a guardrail.
It was a two-door car, and that entire passenger side had a huge amount of damage to it.
Samantha's side of the car, and yet she survives the initial crash.
We've got a car with injuries just past the Mount Joy exit. Hurry.
So in the 911 call, you hear Samantha screaming. It's not clear what she's saying, but you can hear that she's still alive and is screaming.
What you said is just the one car? Yes. Okay. Sir, tell me what to do because this person is upside down. Okay. Okay. We don't want to move them. Just try to keep them safe.
Following protocol, the dispatcher tells the witness not to move the injured. What he doesn't know is exactly what the trucker sees.
Samantha was sort of half in, half out the car, face down in the grass. And the civilians saw Mr. Klinger essentially sitting on Samantha's head.
Not long after that, Samantha falls silent.
How many people were in the car altogether? 2 people. 2. Okay. Are they both awake? No. The one's unconscious. The girl screamed, but she stopped. Okay. Okay. There's help coming. Sweetheart, stay still.
By the time first responders arrive, Samantha Heller is gone. Ben will later tell investigators that he doesn't remember exactly how the crash happened, but that it was all a tragic accident.
So he said he was ejected from the vehicle and landed up coincidentally through the passenger side of the vehicle and happens to land with his, butt sitting on her face, smothering her to death just by coincidence.
But almost immediately, Sergeant Christopher Keller and his team were finding evidence that this was no coincidence.
For example, the witness said that he didn't see any brake lights as Mr. Klinger was going off the road. That's a pretty telltale sign that there's something else going on.
You can see actually in the grass that he drove straight into the guardrail. I mean, it was a controlled crash.
Police also found Samantha's handwritten note inside the wreck. And then there was that 911 call, those screams. Though you can't make out what Samantha is saying on that recording, another eyewitness says she heard everything.
The car driver actually who pulled over said she actually could hear her saying, get off me, and could see her moving her legs.
She couldn't breathe. It's hard knowing that your child suffered in the end.
It was only a few hours before that when Sandra McFalls received a text message from her daughter saying, quote, "I love you, Mama."
And I didn't know. When I got up the next morning, I replied, I'm like, "I love you too, honey, and when you coming home?"
When did you get a phone call something terrible had happened?
Police had showed up, and he told me that there had been a tragic accident. As soon as they mentioned that it was with Ben, I said, "This was no tragic accident. He murdered her."
And police took that claim seriously, especially after a pathologist determined Samantha's cause of death to be multiple traumatic injuries and asphyxia. Manner of death, homicide.
The evidence showed he intentionally killed Samantha.
Coming up,
It's a crescendo of motives.
making the case for murder.
And we found out later was he actually had another girl that he was seeing.
And later,
I know what the police report said.
a Crime Watch Daily exclusive with the man who drove Samantha to her death.
No, I did not kill Sam.
In his phone contacts, she's listed as dumb Heller. That's who would come up. On his contacts, it would come up, dumb Heller, which is awful to say, but that's what he thought of her.